Welcome, everyone, to It Tastes Different Gaming Podcast, the podcast with four different flavors coming from four different gamers. I am your host, Nick Irwin, and I want to welcome my co-hosts, Shane Eisterhold, Patrick Smith, and Russell Rowe. Hey, Patrick, where can they find us?
Well, the first place you should check out is our website at ittastes.different.com. This is the place where you can subscribe to all of our streams and connect to all of our social media sites. You can also find us on Facebook at It Tastes Different. We're also on Instagram at It Tastes Different PC. And then last but not least is Twitter, where you can find us at It Tastes Diff.
What's for dessert? We throw away the razor blade laced apple and eat our fill of candy corn with video games. Today we're talking about horror video games for Halloween. Our Halloween episode when we talk about horror games that we know and love. And first I'm going to send it over to Russ to tell us about his horror game experience. Russ?
Horror. So we're playing some horror games. So for myself, we're not really big, or I'm not really big on horror games, but there are a few that kind of stand out. I'm kind of lucky that it was thrown to me first because I get to be the first one to mention probably one of the most ultimate, bestest of ever horror games, and that's Silent Hill. I'm sure a lot of us cut our teeth on that game when it comes to like a true blue, frightening, nightmarish type of game. I will never forget it. I believe it's PlayStation 2, or was it 3?
It was PlayStation 1 with the first Silent Hill.
But that one that came out, I thought didn't they redo it for PS2 and it was like a release with PS2?
No, they did re-release Silent Hill 1, I think on the Wii, I want to say. And it was called something different, like Shattered Memories or something like that, which was just kind of a reimagining of the first one.
Well, the Silent Hill that I remember, so maybe even 2 now that I need to get my foot out of my mouth, because when I played it, I know I played it on the PS2 because I just bought it because I just got stationed at Germany. It was early 2000. I put it in the old PS2. I started to play it. Never played anything like that before. Now, I need to predicate some of this stuff too. I was working night shift, so we would get off at say 3 or 4 in the morning, maybe even 2 or 3 in the morning, depending on the time. I lived in what was called stairwell housing, and all that is a fancy way of saying like an apartment complex on the base there at Germany. And in Germany, around March, April timeframe, it's gorgeous. It's just beautiful. So all the windows are open, all that good stuff, because you don't have air conditioning in Germany. And so the windows are open. It's late at night. All that's on is the TV, and all I'm doing is playing that game by myself. Isabella was maybe 2 at the time. Rhonda would be in bed. That the old ex-wife would be in bed, and so we would sit there, and I would just sit there and I would play. And above me were this couple, and they worked as SPs, and so they were up. They worked kind of the same kind of shifts as I would. Well, the windows were open this one night. I'm particularly playing it, and it's the scene where you're going through the school, and the girl pops up all over the place, like out of nowhere. The little girl ghost pops up everywhere. I am already. Let me see how a way to say this. I am already defecating in my pants because my heart rate is like out through the roof. It is just, I'm like, all this stuff. And then out of nowhere above me, the couple gets into a fight. And you can't really hear anything initially. And then all of a sudden they come closer to the window. And it's the same time the girl walks by. And I screamed so loud. Rhonda woke up. She thought that we were being attacked. And the people upstairs stopped talking because they didn't even know what was going on. They thought that, like I was yelling or something like that. But that game, I did get to finish that game. It probably took me, probably 3 months just because I needed to just take a respite between gaming sessions. Because like an idiot, I wanted to have the full experience. So every light was off, only the TV. Back in that time, we had the old box TV. So at that time, I had a 36-inch. That's a pretty big, box TV. And so I would play it on that every night. But that was probably my favorite memory. Now, as in my old age, I don't like so many scary ones. But that was my first one that I cut my teeth on. So I think I want to go to Nick here because Nick probably has a lot more experience with games like this.
Oh yeah, I've played tons of horror games. Yes, I do remember Silent Hill. That sounded like Silent Hill 1, going through the high school, I think you said, right? And one of the things that was horrible about that part, and if I remember correctly with that part, you had the little kids that would stab you with knives, and you couldn't see them, and they would just come and stab you. And that, Silent Hill still for me has a place in my heart. I love Silent Hill. I love every Silent Hill game, even the bad ones. That game is just still something that I love to play. But some of the other ones that were horror games that I remember is, of course, Resident Evil. A lot of those are, they got kind of cheesy toward the end, but a lot of the original Resident Evil games were pretty scary. But the one that I remember being a pretty scary game at the time, and it's kind of an unusual scary game, was Fear. Fear was on the PC originally, and I think it got ported over to consoles eventually. But it was a first-person shooter, and it had slowed down mechanics and a really good gun gameplay, but it had a supernatural aspect to it, and that game was creepy. There's one part I remember where you go down a ladder. And it was towards the beginning of the game. There's a little girl, that's following you or haunting you. And you go down a ladder, and as soon as you start going down the ladder, she appears right in front of the ladder. And that, that part just freaked me out. And there's several different parts in that game. And that's a game that I think is, nowadays is sorely missed as really great horror game. And I think it didn't get into the horror genre because it was a first-person shooter. I mean, the main mechanics of the game was first-person shooter mechanics. So I think a lot of people put it as a first-person shooter, but it's really a horror game. There's a lot of supernatural and psychological stuff that happens in Fear that, people that kind of put Fear off as, that ain't scary or whatever. It's a really scary game for back then. And it's still pretty scary now. I mean, those jump scares and stuff that happen throughout the game are still pretty good. They made a Fear 2 and a Fear 3, which, once you got down to Fear 3 was more action than it was horror. There wasn't a lot of psychological stuff that happened. There wasn't a lot of scares. And the scares that did happen were few and far between. They weren't as scary as the original. So it kind of lost its scariness, and another game that was a first-person shooter that kind of followed in that vein was Dead Space. The first Dead Space. I mean, play the first Dead Space now. Go and play it. That is a scary game. Dead Space 2 was pretty scary. It was kind of a mixture of two. It was scary and it was kind of action. And then Dead Space 3 was just all action and less scary. But, the first Dead Space is, I beat that game and I love that. I love Dead Space, but man, that game is hard to get through without being scared of something. So, those are two games that, put themselves out there as being first-person shooters, which you initially think of not being scary, that are really scary. And so if you have the opportunity to play those, which, you can play those, there are, those games are backwards compatible. I think they're on Steam as well, and probably good old games, GOG.com. So you can replay those games and have a lot of fun with, if you want to be scared for Halloween. Those are some great games to check out. Shane, what were some of the games that you remember, and what games scared you?
Probably the Resident Evil series is definitely my favorite of the series of these types of games. Before it went all, G.I. Joe. But I would probably go back to Parasite Eve. I thought that game was fantastic. It had that whole horror element, supernatural. It was just such a good game, and it was along the lines of Resident Evil, but you didn't quite have the gunplay element as much as you did puzzle elements of it. It was a little more on the survive side than fight for your life side. D was another fantastic one in those veins. It was right up there with the Clock Tower series as far as the story and the game mechanics. D is, I think, 95. I think that came out. Absolutely fantastic game. Far as what has came, since then, got Alien Isolation. That game will, it'll scare the shit out of you. Pardon me, but it'll scare the bejeebies out of you. God, Evil Within. That was probably the last one that really made me go, dang.
Or Clock Tower. Remember Clock Tower?
Oh yeah. That's one thing I liked about D was it was very reminiscent of Clock Tower. Clock Tower, Scissor Dude that was wrong. That whoever came up with Scissor Dude was wrong. I mean, even back in those pixelated, 16-bit days, that was creepy. That was creepy. But out of all the games, I think Fatal Frame is probably the one that has stuck with me the most. Now that we talked about it, once you throw that camera up to your face, it's like a whole new game. It was just, it was so well done. It was so creepy and different, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. All right, Pat, since we all know you're the weak-hearted of us all when it comes to these things, what do you got for us?
So yeah, I do not like horror games. I'm not a fan of them. I can't play them to some extent. Some of them are okay, but horror games give me like major anxiety, and I do not know why. It's just what it is. I watch horror movies all the time. They don't bother me. Horror movies do not bother me. I watched them since I was a kid. My parents really didn't censor us from stuff like that when I was a kid. I watched gory horror movies. I mean, Friday the 13th, all those type of stuff when I was a kid. And that stuff never bothered me. The Alien movies. But something about a video game, because it's immersive, I guess, bothers the crap out of me. Like, games like Setsuna. I don't even know if that counts as a horror game. But when you're wearing a pair of headphones in the dark and you're like walking through the water in the beginning of the game and it's that simulated psychosis crap, I noped out quick. I'm like, nope. I just get super anxiety for some reason.
I would say that does fall into horror. I really do. I would think so.
I wanted to play that game so bad, and I've not been able to play it to this day because it's just super anxiety for me. Horror games for some reason just remind me of one of the, I don't know. They remind me of going to the haunted house with your friends when you're a kid. I can go with my friends because I'm not going to be the pansy who doesn't go. But I'm also going to be the guy who's tying onto the back of your shirt with you while you're going. You're not getting away from me, I'm that guy, Or I'm the guy pushing you along and not looking at anything. And I don't want to scream scream out in front of everybody, So that's me. I will play horror games with friends. That's about the best way that I can put it. I'll play them with friends. We play all kinds of the horror games together, but that's the only way I play it. If they're by myself, I have a tendency to get in my head too much. I get freaked out. Like Resident Evil Biohazard, the recent one, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. I don't know what it was. I played that game for a little bit. I made it in the house, went all throughout there. And then when you unlock the little ladder that you got to crawl down into the basement, I noped that thing like 10 times going, I can't go down there. I can't go down there. I can't go down there. And so that's what it is. Those games just eat at me because I'm like, I can't go down there. There's something waiting for me as soon as I go down to the bottom of that ladder. I can't do it. So I just get into my head with that type of stuff. And it's horror games in general that do it to me. It's just super anxiety with them. I mean, even Doom, to an extent, is that way with me. I remember playing Doom when I was younger, when I had a roommate, and he scared the ever-living crap out of me just because I was playing Doom when I had a roommate, and it was in the middle of the night. And when him and I lived together, we both worked for the same company, doing like the 12 hours and 6 hour shifts. So I would work 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. 3 days a week, and then 6 p.m. to midnight one day a week, and then I had like 3 days off, and he would do the same thing. but our schedules were just kind of like flip flops. So I remember one night playing, and it was it was like 12:30, 1 o'clock, and he was coming in the door, and I'm sitting here playing this game in the dark, in the office in the dark where we have our computers at, and he comes in and he like trips over this stupid Mountain Dew tower can that we had because we were slobby freaking kids, and just had that and scared the crap out of me. Dude, I probably screamed like higher pitched than most anybody else does. But I don't know. Games like
I
this
want to
give
hear
me
it now.
anxiety. like Nick, what was that horror game that you and I played? That's like the first person shooter that we had to like deliver the cryopod and stuff like that. Do you remember what that was? You remember the one I'm talking about? It was on PC, wasn't it? Oh, wasn't it Get Out or whatever or GTFO?
Oh, GTFO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that was even kind of, especially because like a bunch of the scenes have you go into this room and like unlock this door and the lights go out and you have to like kill all this stuff. And I'm just like, I'm just running around in circles around Nick, hyperventilating. Like, can you see him? Can you see him? Where's that? I can't see him. That's how this game's make me feel. I'm just like, I can't see anything. I'm just going to start blind shooting in the dark. Hopefully nobody catches a bullet, So, but yeah, GTFO, I mean, it was okay until you got to those little the jump scare parts, but horror games, I don't know. There's just something about, especially like the horror survival game genre where you can't do anything but run and hide. I don't want that kind of anxiety in my life. I can play something like Dying Light, but I don't go out when it's dark in Dying Light. It's got to be daytime.
You do the same thing on Grounded.
I do. I don't go out and Grounded when it's dark. I'm like, there's ants out there. There's spiders out there.
Well, I mean, we played a lot of Dying Light. I mean, I think we finished the game. I thought we did. I mean, that was really. But again, it was like the anticipation, the running over rooftops and stuff. I kind of enjoy that exhilaration within a game. But then again, the shock factor on occasion.
When you would run into a brute or something at night that's supercharged and glowing red, and I'm running and screaming like a little kid trying to make it back to base, and I'm like, I hope Russ is behind me because I don't care, I'm gone. So, I'm not a friend you want to have in a horror movie because I'm going to be the guy that runs and leaves you behind because I can't handle them. I can't handle the horror games for some reason, and only way I can handle them is with friends. Like I said. Tried to play a lot of them, man. I mean, I bought The Evil Within, and I can't do it. I can't do it. I bought Setsuna, I just can't do it. I bought Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, I just can't do it. I have never played the Silent Hill games because I'm freaked out. As soon as the first time in one of the Silent Hill games where you come into the town and it's all kind of hazy, and I'm like, nope, I'm done. I wanted to play the Alien Isolation games. Nope. Wanted to play Dead Space.
Yeah, you wouldn't like Alien Isolation, that's for damn sure.
I tried this and like Amnesia and Outlast. I wanted to play those games because they look cool. PlayStation has some pretty cool looking horror games. Like I saw one called PT, and I was like, that looks interesting, but also looks super scary. So I don't know. I mean, if they made these games co-op, I could play them. So I need my friends to play with, so I'm not alone. That's the only way I can explain it. Is if I'm alone, it's too scary. I don't know how else to put it.
Still play Condemned.
Yeah. See, I'm not going to play that because you guys told me that.
Yeah, you remember Condemned, Shane?
Oh God, yeah, that was a 360 launch title.
So did you guys
had Condemned 2 as well?
Because some of the games look pretty interesting, like Until Dawn on PS4. Did you guys play that one? It's like a slasher movie.
I love that game. I thought that was same. Those are the same people that made what's that one Medan that we tried to play.
Man of Medan.
The Man in the
Man
Van.
of Medan. Yeah.
The Man in the Van.
It's the same people. It's a fantastic game, and it's really not scary, but it's so
gore.
well done. Yeah, there's gore to it.
Gotcha.
But it's so well done that it's just wow. I mean, they did a great job, but it broke my heart when Man of Medan, kind of. It wasn't terrible, but
we played
definitely.
We played it, but it was just because we could make fun of it the whole time we played it.
Yeah, and that's one of those games. We've reviewed some games. We've reviewed several games lately that have been crap, but this game was fun for us because it was an us game that we could play and laugh about it and laugh at ourselves. And that's what made that game fun.
Right.
But-
And like I said, I don't know. I don't know how to put it, but I don't know. My body just can't handle it. I get so worked up and so scared after watching it, I want to play Alan Wake, and Alan Wake seems like kind of a good game, but you get into those scenes where you're like, what's going to jump out and get me?
See,
That
Alan
type of
Wake, Alan Wake had a few scares to it, but Alan Wake was one of the best games at that time, period, bar none. And it was like one of the few games that I bought all the DLC for because it was that good.
But yeah, like I said, I want to play it, and you guys rave about it, but I'm just like, I don't know if I can handle this, especially because my game room is in the basement. And I'm like, what's in the basement? So like I said, I don't get into horror games too much unless we play together. And
Yeah.
I have to be playing with at least somebody else. Like I said, I played GTFO with Nick just because it was with Nick. Will I play GTFO by myself? No, definitely not. I'm not playing it. So, like I said, you guys raved about Biohazard, Resident Evil 7. I bought it, played it, but I'm sure you guys probably know what I'm talking about. In the beginning, it's in the beginning of the game where you unlock the little thing next to the fireplace in the room where you have to go down in the basement.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I couldn't do it. I kept looking down in that hole, going, "There's no way I can't go down there." There's no, literally, like it felt like real life to me. I kept looking down the hole, going, "I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't climb down there." I climbed halfway down there one time and climbed right back out.
Resident Evil 7 is not scary at all. I
Well,
mean,
I
really,
really-
it has moments for somebody like Patrick, but
For me,
Uh,
yeah.
me, it
and
was
that's not to be offensive.
and I wanted it to
Uh,
be. It was just not. There wasn't any part like I played through Resident Evil 7 completely, and I think you did too, Shane.
No,
And
I
it
still
wasn't a
haven't
part-
finished it.
Oh, okay. Well, I finished it, and there's not a part that's scary. I mean, the thing is about the game is you think that something's going to happen in a particular part, but it doesn't. It doesn't happen. So, it's more psychological than anything, right? Because you think something's going to happen. You think something's going to pop out of you. You think something's going to jump scare you. You think something's going to scare you. And that never happens in the game. There's never a part where something comes out and scares you.
Well, crap. Maybe I need to play it now. There's also, I'm trying to remember the horror game that I tried to play that had some interesting mechanics that was like, it had like stop motion or pause. But I can't remember. But basically, you go into different rooms of this house and there's like exploded things, and you can kind of like manipulate the camera to put a scene together. Does that one sound familiar to anybody? Man, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember what that one was called, and it scared the crap out of me too. But because I think what I found out when I was reading some articles is that the ghost chick is like always behind you, no matter what you do, you just don't ever see her. But there's like, I can't remember the name of it. If I remember the name of it, I'll say it. I'll mention it. But I just remember playing this game, and the whole time I've got anxiety about when the jump scare is going to happen or what's going to jump out and grab me. Because we're currently playing a game that we'll review soon that I'm terrified. I hate it. I hate it, and I hate you guys for making me play it. But
I love it.
But yeah.
That's what's funny about that game is what we're doing now is we're together, and it's still. I mean, even I was, putting some paper between my cheeks just in case I have an accident because that game scared the crap out of me at parts. It really did.
So what's the Evil Within 2? Maybe that might be it, or maybe it was the Evil Within that I played. What's that one kind of like?
You start off going into a hospital, I believe.
Yeah.
You're investigating some creepy crap, and it's almost instantaneous. You get in there, and it's like,
Okay.
holy
That's
crap.
That's it.
That
'Cause
game's not scary either, though.
I just pulled up a screenshot of Evil Within 2. Yeah, one of the scenes is like there's a camera set up and there's like exploded blood and heart or something everywhere.
Yeah.
That was the game.
Yeah. Now, see, Nick, you have to remember, though, you're a masochist. I mean, you like punishment and pain and all that crap. And I love a good scary game. But what's scary to me, you're like, no, shove a red hot poker in my eye first, and then I'll play it. That's you like pain and suffering and
Well,
scary.
I mean, like, scary to me is like Do you ever play the Slender the 8 Pages?
Slender? Like Slender
Mhm.
Man?
Yeah, Slender Man, the 8 Pages.
No,
There's a
I
free
don't
game.
know nothing about Slender Man.
There's a free game on PC. It has you going through the woods, finding 8 pages. As you gather pages, Slender Man is more and more. He comes after you more and more as you gather the pages. So the more they gather, the more he shows up, the more he tries to get you. And that was scary, right? And it's a very simple game. I mean, it's probably still free, and that was a scary game. And that one freaked me out because you're in the woods in the night, and you only have a flashlight. You gotta find these 8 pages, and you gotta find them as quick as you can because the more you find them, the more you linger, Slender Man's gonna find you, right? Or System Shock 2. I don't know if you guys ever played System Shock 2. It's a fantastic game. Made by the same people that made Bioshock. Before they made Bioshock. They made System Shock and System Shock 2. I played System Shock 2. System Shock 2 is a little old in the tooth, It's an older game, but, oh man, it's so creepy. And it's incredibly fun. But it's definitely creepy as far as the creep factor goes. There's some jump scares. There's some things that are going to freak you out. You'll hear the monsters moans and groans, and you'll be like, "Where's that coming from?"
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
Yeah, sound is probably the biggest thing. The original Silent Hill, when the alarms would go off throughout the town, man, that's when I was puckering poopers there. That scared the crap out of me when I hear that damn siren go off.
Yeah, so see, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that's not enjoyment to me. The anxiety, the anticipation of that just makes my chest tighten. I don't know.
I grew up on horror movies and stuff like that, though. I
But
mean,
that's
I don't know
something-
about you.
I watch horror movies. I remember being a young little kid watching what was it? There's all kinds of them, the scary movies and the scary shows and all this stuff. And that stuff doesn't bother me. I watch scary movies today. They don't bother me. I watch any of those movies. They don't bother me at all.
But that's because you're not partaking in it like
Right.
you are the game. Because the
Exactly.
game is, all right, if I take one more step forward, is this damn dog going to come flying through the window, or is there going to be a tentacle crawl up my butt? I mean,
Right.
whatever your action is, it's going to cause you some sort of grief.
Exactly, and that's the
And-
whole thing, is that it's sound and everything, because you're sitting there playing quietly and you're trying to, I've got an Adobe Atmos headset, so I'm like, I can hear every little thing, and you're just like,
Oh, yeah.
footstep? Was that a footstep? Was that a door opening? What was that noise? What was that? And you're just like, where's it coming closer? Is it going away? And you're just sitting there the whole time just listening, and you're, I'm
And
usually
then
in
you
the dark.
discover it's the dog behind you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Or you discovered it's your buddy's kids that sound like the little kids from Freddy from what's the name? What's the movie? Yeah, or something like that, or the little girl singing the song from Nightmare on Elm Street. You're just like, what do I hear?
Oh.
You know?
1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
Yeah. And you're like, all right, well, they just ruined nursery rhymes for me, so it's all that. It's just the immersion, because the only way to play horror games is with a headset, unless you just have some massive stereo, and then you're just like, all right, what was behind me? Because my stereo made it seem like I heard footsteps behind me, So it's one of those things, and you always play in the dark, unless you're me, and you have every light in the basement on while you're playing, so that you can see everywhere. But it just makes me look over my shoulder and keep in anticipation and stuff, and because I'm one of these people that I don't believe in ghosts, I don't believe in any of that stuff, and I'm like, okay, but these games make me look over my shoulder and doubt everything I see around me.
Damn you, reality.
Right.
Or the
I
original Prey.
Oh, yeah. Prey. That was damn good. Yeah. Did you ever play Prey? The original?
The original.
Oh, even the new one was creepy as crap.
I think that. Well, yeah, it was.
The original was probably a little more actiony, but
Right.
the overall, the new one though is those little black squiddly things. Man, those are crawling out of the woodworks. They will get you. What
Right,
about
when
you,
the
Russ? What
the
was?
original or the secondary one? They can be, in Prey 2, they could be whatever they want to be, right? They're mimics.
Yeah.
Mimic items.
That's what they called them.
Right. They mimic items in the world, so they could be a coffee cup or a box or a computer or whatever.
Yeah,
They
I
come
did
out
not
at-
like that. Especially if you're searching a desk and a damn thing is a lamp sitting right there.
All right, so who wants that in their life? What drives you guys to play the horror games? It's the games that are scaring you. I mean, because it reminds me of when I was younger. We watched what did we watch? I remember being pretty young. Oh, was it The Exorcist? Yeah, I think maybe it was The Exorcist. I remember when I was younger, we went over to a friend's house and she had got The Exorcist, like rented it, and it freaked this chick out so much that she's like, "Can you put this in the mailbox when you leave? I don't want it in my house while I sleep." I crap you not. When I was leaving her house, she was like, "Can you put this in the mailbox and I will take it, drop it off tomorrow because it can't stay in my house."
That's pretty bad. That's really bad.
Yep. But see, stuff like that never bothers me. Like, we played with Ouija boards and stuff like that as a kid, and that stuff never bothered me. But video games is another story, and it just has to be the immersion. I'm not going to be one of these guys who can play a VR horror game. You will end up with a broke TV, a broke face, because I'm swinging and doing all kinds of stuff, and I may hurt myself when I fall on the floor in the fetal position or something.
Oh yeah, when Nick's girlfriend tried out Resident Evil Kitchen on my VR, that damn hand come around her face, and all I remember was she yelled "Nope" and yanked that thing off her head, tore the little padding on it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is I don't need that in my life. I don't need a heart attack at 40.
I'm okay with it. It was funny as hell. It wasn't my girlfriend.
That's pretty funny.
It was hilarious. She just no.
Did you make your wife play, Shane?
No, she wouldn't. She knows better than to do anything I tell her to do.
Did you play it, Shane?
Oh yeah, yeah. It scared the shit out of me. That's why. That's why I had Nick's girlfriend play it, because it was scary.
Nick, did you play it?
Of course.
I think that Nick just doesn't get anxiety at all in life.
No, I've met a few of his exes. I mean, he can pretty much handle anything scary.
I mean, that's the only way I can understand this is that you guys don't get anxiety playing these games. Like Nick does. Those scary games that are scary. Do they give you anxiety while you're playing them?
It depends on the game. There are some games that do give me anxiety, or there was. Anyway, I should say that. Silent Hill was definitely one of those. No, nowadays I can play Silent Hill, no problem. Resident Evil. I don't have as much anxiety for games as for horror games as much as I used to. I've kind of gotten over that where they don't bother me as much as they used to. There was, what was the game? I can't remember what game it was. There was one game that, and I can't remember what game it was, but there was one game that I could not and would not finish. I got to a certain point and I just said, nope, I'm too anxious for it, right? And I eventually over time I got over that, and I ended up finishing that game. And for the life of me, I cannot remember what game that was. But so those games for me now, those horror games, I don't know. I don't want to say excitement, but I love horror games. I mean, Condemned and Fear and Silent Hill and Prey and Resident Evil and all that stuff.
So here's what I equate that to. When you were in school, they taught you that and your ancestors had stressors. When the stressors came, you had a fight or flight mentality. Nick was the person that got eaten by the lion because he was like, "What's in that bush? Let me check it out." Nick's ancestors got lucky.
That's a pretty solid analogy.
Yeah, they never ran into the lion in the bush. They always was like, "What's in that bush?" That's what we go, "Oh, it's a rabbit." Well, what's in that bush? Oh, it's a squirrel. They never got in the bush and said, "What's in the bush?" It's a lion. So Nick's ancestors got away with having that super strong fight influence is the only thing I can say in their life, because my body tells me, and it's all, like I said, I don't believe in any of that stuff, but my body and my, I don't know if you put it anyway, primal instincts just basically tell me, nope, out of that, just nope, run away.
Sounds
Like,
sounds like subconsciously you have a little belief.
no, I don't have any belief. It's just my body. There's nothing I can do to tell my body to turn off that stressor of that's not real. Who cares? Because when you're playing, your body doesn't care if it's real. Your mind is saying, I'm interpreting footsteps behind me and I don't see anything.
It's the level of like immersion is what it is. It's like, Patrick, you play games to be immersed into a world that is different from everyday life. So that's really what you do. You immerse yourself. You have the better headphones, so you have the Atmos sound. You have the up to date decent TV that's up to date, so that you can have the proper graphics. Because as you've said, you're a graphic snob. So like those things, they immerse you into the story. They immerse you into the game, and where maybe you might be invested into a game like Horizon Dawn, where you've said time and time again, like you really love the story, you love the sci-fi element to that. Well, you can't just turn that off when you play a game that's against what you love, or you can't make a game into something that you don't love. Like, you want to be immersed, you want to be in that game, so you find yourself immersed into all the sounds and all the actions and everything that's going on. So that's probably the reason why you can't do that. Whereas, and this is not a dig on anybody, but like Nick, for example, he's got kids that are running around most of the day. He's got stuff going on left and right, and he's busy, and he's kind of, that's the kind of atmosphere he's kind of used to being in. So that stuff probably doesn't affect him as much. And same with Shane. Shane, has got kids running around and everything like that. And for me, I mean, I'm the lone guy that doesn't have any more children in the house, or for that fact, I turn all the lights off and I'll play a game. How stupid is that? But I'll do it, and I get immersed into it and I lose myself into that game. So I think that probably plays a little bit of factor in that, a little bit. But I mean, that's at least my opinion for you, Patrick, is that you love to immerse yourself in a game, because that's the main reason why you play games, is that you enjoy the storytelling, the action, everything that goes on with it. And I mean, when you're sitting there waiting for some crap to happen, it's not very fun all the time.
Yeah, the anticipation of a game, of any horror type situation, is the worst part. It's not when the jump finally comes out. It's that, oh crap, I know it's coming. Oh no, there it is. Okay, I'm done.
It's the anticipation of that happening. I mean, one of the scariest games that I still remember playing, that I can think of, is Eternal Darkness. Eternal Darkness. I mean, because that game took it into another level, right? That game messed with your TV. It would change the channels. It would turn your volume down. It would turn your volume up. It would switch your controllers. It would change what you were looking at. I mean, as far as psychological goes, that game played with your psyche the entire time, because it would do anything it wasn't just the game itself. I mean, it would literally change your TV's source, output. Where you're looking at video 1, right, on an old box TV, because this is, Eternal Darkness is back on the GameCube. You're looking at video 1, it would change it to video 2, which would be nothing but static, and then it would switch it back, after you've gone through a certain section or whatever. Or it would turn the volume up or turn the volume down, or turn subtitles on or turn off, or mute it here or mute it there, or it would switch controllers or whatever. I mean, it would do all that stuff. And that really, I mean, for me, that's one of my favorite, if not my all-time favorite, psychological type of horror games, is Eternal Darkness on the GameCube.
And yet he says he's not a masochist.
Well, no, what that means is that now, just want to let everybody know. Thanks for coming to the podcast. I'm going to leave and find every GameCube and burn it to the ground because I am never going to have the opportunity to play that game because I never want to.
That game was awesome.
I'll buy it eventually. It's still expensive. It's an expensive game to buy. I think Game World has it for like what, $50 or something like that, which is more than I want to spend for it. So, but I'll eventually buy it at some point, and just so I could play it again, because that's one game that I wish would come back. I don't think it ever will, because I think the developers are long gone. And the pub, I don't know about the publisher, but especially the developers long gone. And Silicon Knights is who made it originally, which also made the Metal Gear Solid 2 port to GameCube. They were the ones that made that too.
No, Twin Snakes.
Yeah, Twin Snakes. So I think Silicon Knights is definitely gone. So, if it does come back out again, it'll be re-released by some other developer, but I just don't see that game coming out again, unfortunately.
I don't know, man. Every time you turn around, they're making another remaster, another remake. So
I would love for them to make a remake or a remaster of this game. Even just putting it out as it was, and having everything that it did, with the changing of inputs and volume and stuff like that it did, the manipulation that it had, which I'm sure that had to do something with probably your memory card and things like that back in the day. But, they have a hard drives or SSDs or whatever next gen that they could do that type of stuff with. And that type of horror, they don't really do anymore. You don't see games that do that stuff. Even Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear Solid? It was Metal Gear Solid, right?
Yeah, were you talking about Psycho Mantis?
Yeah, Psycho Mantis, where you had to put in the PlayStation 2 controller, and he messed around with your inputs and stuff like that. I mean, imagine, the Psycho Mantis fight, but for Eternal Darkness, it was the entire game, right? And he would change your inputs, and he would control your volumes, and you had to turn it, plug in a second controller or whatever to play or whatever, whatever happened in the Psycho Mantis fight. But he would do stuff like that. And Eternal Darkness was that premise, but the entire game of Eternal Darkness. And so, yeah, I would love to see games like that, or games, horror games that take advantage of stuff like that nowadays.
So I like to see, like I said, I've looked at horror games over the years and be like, I really want to play these things, but I don't have the heart to play them, I should say. One of the ones that always kind of looked interesting to me was Soma. Did either of you guys play Soma?
I want to say I did, but I can't say for sure.
I kind of remember it being one of those games where you were underwater in like an underwater abandoned base or something like that.
No, yeah, it was made by the people that made Amnesia, The Dark Descent. And no, I never played Soma. I think I have it on the Epic Game Store. I think it was free at one time. But I've never played. Yeah, I do have Soma, but I haven't played it.
They just need to make more horror games that are multiplayer, because then I'll play them. But I get too freaked out when I'm by myself. I don't know why. I do, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, I don't know. I don't know a better way to say it, but they just freak me out too much. Even like playing some of the survival games like The Forest. That game is creepy as all get out. And I remember playing that by myself, and then I'm like, nope, I bought it. And I didn't play it again until me and Nick tried to play it together.
Yeah, that game is creepy. You guys remember the Seventh Guest or the 11th Hour back on the old PC? Back in 1993, 1995. Those were like puzzle games, but they were horror games. The Seventh Guest and 11th Hour. They were I did play that. Yeah.
Those didn't seem that scary to me.
I mean, they were scary at the time. We didn't have games like we do nowadays that are a lot more scarier. But, or Alone in the Dark. Alone in the Dark was a survival horror, and...
I mean,
I don't find Alone in the Dark that scary as much as some of the other ones, though.
Right. And some of them were just, and I will tell you that I've played some horror games that were just more hilarity than horror. Like, do you guys ever remember playing a game called Phantasmagoria?
Yeah.
I'm talking
Oh,
about
God, yeah.
1995, the like click adventure horror game. That was hilarious to me. That game was not scary at all. It was funny as all get out.
I I can't remember. I think that game was actually supposed to be spoofish, but I don't remember.
Yeah, but it was back in the time when video games were coming out and trying to be more realistic rather than video game-ish, and there were like actors and scenes and stuff like that. I just remember playing it, laughing the entire time I'm playing it, going, "What is this?" But yeah, so sometimes games end up being more, I don't know what's term, more funny than scary to me.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they tend to be more horror themed, right? Not. I mean, because horror is a broad spectrum. It's sometimes horror can just be like blood and guts. More than pop out and scare.
Right. Like,
you got games like House of the Dead and stuff like that. They can be considered horror, but they're not scary.
right. And yeah, and like I said, I played the Phantasmagoria. It's like a point and click game, but yeah, those games they don't bother me. It's just, I don't know, it's the scary games that bother me, and it's just something I can't play by myself. But when I play with friends, it's fine. Like, we play the one shooter that's like Dark Souls-esque. I always forget the name of it for some reason. That we play as a group. Remnant, yeah. That's kind of a horror-ish game, but it's not really. It is, but it isn't. And I don't play that game by myself, neither. But I love it when we play that game as a group.
That game is hard by itself, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the games that's not a horror game that scared me when I was a kid was Echo the Dolphin.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
When you go down, hear me out now. Hear me out.
Everything.
When you go down and you get to the deep water part and you find the octopus, especially on the Dreamcast version, the octopus scared me. That was scary to find that octopus because unless you go by him slowly, he whips you with his tentacle, and yeah, that was just, especially on the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast was all 3D instead of 2D like the old Echo the Dolphin, and you see that big tentacle just whip you, and yeah, that was scary. That was a scary part, and especially being I think also being deep in the ocean. Just getting down further in the ocean where it gets dark and you can't see anything.
Right, because there's also that one thing when they have like I don't even know what they called it, like Vortex Queen or whatever.
Right.
The little thing that just looks like an alien that's watching you the whole time you're swimming around. That is kind of creepy when you're in the super deep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And Banjo-Kazooie. Oh, my God, that bird. Oh, so scary.
No, not Banjo, but Echo was scary. There were certain parts of Echo the Dolphin that were scary, especially when you get deep down the deep, dark ocean. Apparently, you didn't play it. You didn't play it enough. When you get down to the deep, dark ocean, that's when they get scary.
Yeah, I think it's called the Vortex Queen or something, isn't it? Let me Google
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But yeah, if you Google like the Echo the Dolphin Vortex Queen, yeah, look at that thing. And when it's watching you, you're just like, it looks like the alien mouth is just going to open up and eat you. It looks like the alien queen.
Or even the octopus,
Yeah,
like,
the octopus,
look at the Dreamcast, especially the Dreamcast version. Look at the octopus portion where you have this 3D animated octopus, a giant octopus, right? It's not like a little one. It's giant. And it's right there in front of you, and you're deep in the ocean, and you're like, I gotta get past this thing, and it's freaky.
Yeah, like I said, it's just, I don't know, it's my anxiety that I can't get over it, and it seems to, I don't know, it's the whole, like I said, to me, it's like the Halloween haunted houses things. I can do it with friends, but when I'm by myself, I'm like, nope, I don't feel like I want to be scared tonight. so I can do it in a group. Because I guess all I got to do is outrun my other 3 friends, right?
That's right. Like a bear in the woods. I can have more kids.
So I could definitely, I understand some horror games. And like I said, there's tons of horror games that interest me. I want to play Setsuna. It looks amazing. I watched Russ play some of it, and I'm like, it's great. I want to play it. But I cannot get past the simulated psychosis because I hear voices in the back of my head while I'm playing it with my headset, and I'm like, no. No,
I've
and to me, I
played
just
quite
can't
a
play a
bit of
game.
that game.
Yeah, and I can't play the game. I can't play games without sound. So to me, I'm like, I can't play it without sound, which would make it less of an issue for me. But I need the sound.
Well, then play without the headset. But that game is, I mean, the combat's fantastic. I'm really excited for the new one when it releases for the Series X. But the game is just so good. It's just everything about it. And the creepiness, yeah, you want the headphones. You want that sound, really. I mean, that is the game. It's about mental health of this girl who's just losing her crap. It's so
Right.
good.
So talking about like scary or games that are meant to scare her, did you guys play that PT, that playable teaser that was like
Love
Kojima?
PT. Yep.
Like
Yep.
I guess it turned out to be like a Kojima thing, but it was like revealed to be like Silent Hills or whatever. So
Yeah.
you guys
it's,
played that? It's like the same scene over and over and over. Like
Yeah,
the
I
hallway
have
or
it
whatever.
still downloaded on my PlayStation because I won't remove
Yep,
it
same.
because they're never going to finish that game. And
Well, no,
it's
it's not supposed to be a finish. It was like it's
it was
never
a
wasn't
playable trailer is what
right.
PT stood for.
right playable.
They
teaser.
were supposed to be Kojima, the dude from Walking Dead. I believe Guillermo del Toro was in it as
Yes.
well. They were, they were going to bring back Silent Hill.
right.
And if that playable teaser was any indication of what Kojima was doing, holy crap!
Right.
I mean, just
so
ugh,
yeah,
love
what
it.
ended up happening was there was supposed to be a dispute between Konami and Kojima, and so
Yeah.
Konami owns it, so they're basically not going to let this happen because now Kojima has his own game studio, Kojima Productions. So
Yeah,
that will never happen.
Yeah, before Metal Gear Solid 5 even released, Konami was like yanking his name off of everything.
Well,
They're like, nope,
and
screw you.
and there's so much stuff that I want to play, but I will tell you that the last Kojima, the Death Stranding, that gave me anxiety. When you're running through the PTs, in that game, I'm like, I cannot deal with this. There's one over there. There's one over there. I can't see them unless I get too close, and then it's too late, and they kill me. And I'm carrying I'm a human forklift or a human truck. I'm like, that game. I didn't finish it. I made it to the second area, and I played quite a bit of the second area to build the roads above all the bad stuff. And then I'm like, okay, I got all the roads built. I'm gonna run and go to the next area, and I just kind of lost interest in it. But it got to the point to where a lot of the scenes were just too creepy for me, where I would just creepy to where it just gave me too much anxiety. Where I'd go into like I think they called them PTs or BTs. I think BTs, that was it. And you would go into the area and it would just be so flooded with them, and it's raining and it's thundering and it's getting dark, and you're just like, no, I don't want to be scared. So there's one thing about building anxiety, and there's one thing about building fear, and the games that try to build upon fear are the ones that I don't enjoy.
Right. And that game was, going through the BTs was scary. I did finish that game, and that game was okay, but going through those areas where you did have anxiety because it's like you couldn't hardly see them. You could maybe make an outline of them, maybe. And you have to use a lot of your resources to kind of figure out where the BTs were, and you would see those invisible footprints coming through the mud and stuff that would come towards you, and that was a scary part. But yeah, so that game was intense. Another game that I think about multiplayer wise that I think we all played. I don't know about Russ, but I know we three played Hunt. That game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that
a
game
creepy
gets
good.
scary.
Played that.
Yep.
Me and Pat played that a few nights.
Did we? Yeah, okay,
Yep.
yeah, we did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause
that
only
was
three.
stressful as crap.
Yeah, usually when one of us can't play, we'll play Hunt. And yeah, Hunt is one of those games that I won't play by myself because it is creepy. Especially like one of the easiest bad guys in that game, which is the spider, the big giant spider. He's one of the easiest enemies in that game. He's still kind of creepy when you go into the house or the barn or wherever he's at, and he's like running around the ceiling, and you're just like, oh my God, kill me now.
Well, yeah, it's definitely.
he's a giant spider just like crawling through, and he's moving like a spider crawling through the ceiling and stuff. Yeah,
and taking swipes at you and skittering away, and then you're just like, you guys better give me a wide berth because I'm gonna be shooting the shotgun like there's nobody else in the room. So yeah, I don't know. that's like I said, it is me, and because I don't get that sense from you guys. You guys play a lot of the horror games, scary games, because I really want to play some of this stuff. I want to play Alan Wake, but I can't. Can't bring myself to do it, even though I want to, because I don't know how to explain the feeling, but the feeling that the games give me, like Alan Wake, when I start it up and I get into a scene that's very tense, I feel like the only way I can say this is I feel like I have to pee constantly. That's the way they make me feel. Like I'm sitting there playing it, going, I gotta pee, but I'm holding it so I can get through this scene in a movie. I feel like I drank the biggest soda they have in a movie theater, and I'm trying to wait until the movie's over so I don't miss anything. And I've had to pee since an hour into the movie, and now we're at 2 hours and 45 minutes with another 30 minutes left, and I gotta pee. I can't miss this. And that's how that makes me feel the whole time I'm playing that game. It's like I stop and go pee, and I come back and sit down and play, and I feel like I gotta pee again.
All right. So what we've learned today, boys and girls, is Nick has a phobia of SeaWorld, and Patrick's got a weak bladder. Good Lord.
When playing video games, yeah.
So let me ask this.
Oh, crap.
What, out of all the horror games that you've played, or maybe even if you want to expand that, of all the horror games that you've seen or played, what's the one your most horrific horror game out of all of them for you? And
G.I. Joe.
No, that's not a horror game, but it is pretty horrific. Okay, Shane, since you're the one chiming up, we'll go to you first. What's your most favorite horror game or more horrific horror game?
Well, I'm going to have to honestly, the one that, when it comes to a horror game, the one that always comes to my mind is Resident Evil 1. The original with the FMVs, the Doberman jumping through the window was, I think that was my OG jump scare, when I think about those things. But I think if I could ask for one of those horror games that I enjoy the most to be remade, I'd probably go Parasite Eve. Because it was just such a creepy game and a good game, and it was very macabre. I definitely go Parasite Eve. Or one nobody brought up, Dino Crisis.
I was going to say Dino Crisis. Yes. Yeah, I love Dino Crisis.
I would say Parasite Eve is probably the one horror game that I want so bad to have a remake of. Not a remaster, you cheap punks. A remake, a real remake.
Oh yeah, I would love for Square Enix to revitalize the Parasite Eve franchise. Mm-hmm. They made Parasite Eve third birthday on the Vita. I think it was the Vita or the PSP. I can't remember which. And at the time they put that out as like, oh, this is it, to see if if people really want a new Parasite Eve. And it's like, well then, okay. First of all, if it was just an action game, I have it.
Yeah.
On my PS Vita, and it's just an action game. There's none of the RPG elements from the Parasite Eve game or anything like that came into it. It was just clearly action, nothing else. Yeah. And it wasn't Parasite Eve. It had the main protagonist, but other than that, that was about it. And it's like, well, of course people don't want that. That's not what people want. And plus, you put it on a system that not a lot of people have. People like the Vita, yes, but or even the PSP, people liked it. The people that had that, but
I took that thing back like a day after I bought it. I was like, "Are you kidding me? What a piece of crap!" The only thing they had, I played Spider-Man on it for about an hour, then I played Hot Shots Golf. So that's for another time.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, it was a system that they shouldn't have brought Parasite Eve out on. They should have brought it out on the PlayStation 2 or 3 at the time, or something like that, and made it a full-fledged Parasite Eve game. So I agree with you. I hope Parasite Eve comes back. That's a franchise that Square Enix needs to revisit.
Yeah. D would be another one I would like to see brought back. I think that was an underrated one. D and D2 were both fantastic. All right, Pat, What's your game you want brought back?
Happy Fun Time Basement Virgins game.
Oh,
I don't have a favorite horror movie because I don't a horror game because I don't partake in them. I mean, I will say that if you want to lump games in there like that, I would do Left 4 Dead because it's a scary game for multiplayer, and that's what I like is those type of games. I would love for them to do a new Left 4 Dead, that we can
yeah.
play together for friends, and that's about the extent. I like the games like that are multiplayer in that sense, and that's about what you're going to get for a horror game out of me. I really wish we could have all played GTFO together, but somebody's computers can't hang, so
Hey,
so
it can hang. It's dead right now.
it hung itself. But yeah, like I said, I don't like horror games, so I don't I don't partake in them usually. Like I said, I really want to play like Setsuna and Alan Wake, but I can't bring myself to do it. One day maybe I'll be able to play Alan Wake or Evil Within or whatever the games I really like, and or even Resident Evil 7, the Biohazard one. I really want to play it. I just can't bring myself to it, so I don't have a favorite. So I'm copping out on this one. Russ, you're up. You have to take the bat for this one.
I mean, you know, I have not played many games before, but as everybody's talking and I'm listening and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, that first Resident Evil was, I mean, I probably farted a few times and had to check myself. I mean, I was like, there was a couple of times those zombie dogs jumping out, the slow moving, like if I don't kill this guy, I'm going to die, boss fights or mini boss fights that you had. That was really good. Honestly, there's nothing I want to bring back, but and then we were talking, I was like, what would be awesome is to make a game, and I want all the credit if any developer hears this. My name is Russell Rowe. I live at yada, yada, yada. We'll work out the details. But wouldn't it be awesome to have a game that functions with your smart home and with your Bluetooth devices and stuff like that? Like you're sitting there playing.
I
like,
will kill you. I will kill you.
That I mean, I would seriously, I would play that game. Like all of a sudden, your Alexa show or something like that goes, the temperature in this room right now. I mean, like it just like that would be insane. The lights flicker or something, the light
The
goes
lights going off in the other room.
Yeah, heck yeah, that would
The
be
air conditioner kicks down to 40 degrees and it's cold in there. No, I will kill somebody.
That would be that. I mean, I'm sure the technology will be there someday, and it'll come to fruition. I just can feel it, but that would be really cool to see. But no, Resident Evil. That I guess what I should say is that I would love to have some game that gives me the feel that Resident Evil and Silent Hill did the very first time I played those games. Susuna or that one there, that there. I do love that game. I love her voices. I love that stuff going on in the background. I mean, it is kind of an anxiety filled thing, a dying light. That anxiety of like, Patrick's like, it's about to get dark. It's about to get dark. I'm like, dude, we have a few minutes. Dude, we have a few minutes. No, it's getting dark. We're gonna go. And then all of a sudden, it's like dark, and I'm like, I know I kind of pushed it a little bit too far, and like we're running over the tops of the houses, and it's like, the guys are like right at your feet, and I don't know. On occasion, I don't mind those, but and I get kind of long winded with this, but it's not something I go to, but whenever there's a really good one, I can stay with it for sure. So that I would say the short answer to the long answer there would be, Resident Evil. The feel of what Resident Evil and what Silent Hill was first is what I would really love to see. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Resident Evil and Silent Hill and Dino Crisis and Parasite Eve. All those, I would love to see, reimaginings, remakes, or just, brand new games from those that really encapsulate, really bring out the original vision of those games. One of the ones that I would love to see them redo or remake or make a new one is Condemned. Condemned was, that was a scary game. And it wasn't, in that game, there wasn't any psychological horror, really. It was real people. but they would pop out and come at you out of nowhere. And there was kind of some supernatural stuff going on, but it was very, it was not, it wasn't what you thought. It was like the killer or the psychopath that you were trying to track down was supernatural in his way. Right, he wasn't supernatural, but he did a lot of, or she did a lot of supernatural things, like having mannequins sit out in weird patterns and things like that, and just it was more psychological in that sense, right? It made you think of really really just crazy person being the killer, or being the person that you're pursuing, and so there were no. From what I remember, there really wasn't any ghosts or anything like that, or phantoms or anything like that. It was just real people they were fighting, but they would come out of nowhere, and they were like all jacked up on drugs or whatever, and so they would just jump out of nowhere and they would jump scare you and things like that. But it was real people, and you in the same sense, you were trying to track down some sort of serial killer who was throwing out some weird, information for you to track down, mannequins in weird spots or really just messed up stuff. And, that's how you kind of came about finding out who the serial killer was. So, and stuff would happen in that game where the lights would go out and stuff, but it was all physical, right? It wasn't psychological. It wasn't like, ghost or anything like that. It was just the people that were on drugs or on some sort of psychosis or something like that, and that would be crazy and come at you and stuff. So, it was more of that type of thing. So,
people
I would love to
mysterious
see
monsters.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I would love to see another Condemned or a Condemned 3 or just a remake of the first Condemned or something. Just that franchise, I think, they only had 2 games, and I think that franchise ended too early. I think they could have made some more Condemned games that were really cool, because that game is really cool, and it's still a fun game to this day, and it's still really cool. I don't think I've seen, especially Condemned, I don't think I've seen a game that's really remade that type of game before.
Well, Condemned, they made a Condemned too, and I think that's what killed it, because the second one, it was missing. It was just missing what that first one had.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was missing what the first one had, but it was still that type of, I think they went down the route that a lot of these games go, which is more action. And I think that's where they falter, right? Silent Hill did the same thing. Resident Evil did the same thing. A lot of these games go more down the action route because action sells more than horror or psychological horror. But, for those of us that like that type of game, that's what we're wanting. That's what, the people that originally bought Condemned or Resident Evil 1 or Silent Hill 1, that's the kind of gameplay that we enjoy. And they go in this route where they become more action oriented just so they can get those people that are more action, that buy those action oriented games. They try to pull them into this environment. And what they end up doing is they end up making the game more action oriented than psychological or horror, which is what brought in the people initially. They take a niche type game and turn it in mainstream. And when they turn it mainstream, that's where it falters.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. When Resident Evil 5 came out, it wasn't a bad game at all, but it was definitely not Resident Evil. 4 led a little bit towards that actiony area that it went through for 5 and 6, but that's not what people wanted. That's what really hurt 7 or 6. That whole damn, just run around and shooting. That's all it was.
Right.
At least 4, was able to keep some of that that horror element. Right.
They lose the horror aspect with, especially, even 4 had somewhat horror, and then 5 was pretty much none, and 6 was definitely none. And then they brought it back with 7, and that's why 7 prevailed, right? I mean, that's why 7's, for most people, one of their favorite Resident Evils. Who for those who didn't play the originals, that's one of their favorite ones, and it's understandable because they brought back that horror element to 7. Now, 7 wasn't that scary, but it was scarier than the last few. And that first-person perspective that they brought to 7 really brought out what the game or what Resident Evil should and continuing on should be. They should. It's not an action game. It's a horror game, and if you should stick to that element. Don't sway from that, because if you want to make an action game, then there's plenty of Resident Evil spin-offs that are action games. Remember the whole on-rails shooter Resident Evil games?
Outbreak? Or
no, not Outbreak. I can't remember.
Crap. It's the one for the Wii.
Well, they had one on PS2, I believe, too, and they had one for the Wii as well. But they had a couple
Survivor one or whatever.
Yeah,
Survivor.
And they had ones for the Wii were like Outbreak 1, Outbreak 2, or something 1 and 2, or Archive 1 and 2, which was original Resident Evil games, I think 1 and 2 or something like that were transitioned to do first-person shoot or on-rail shooter games, right? And so if you're going to transition a game to that, that's fine. If you're going to transition a game, if you're going to make a spin-off or it's an action game, that's fine. But if you're going to make your mainline series into an action game, that's where you're going to lose a lot of those people who love the franchise, right?
Well, and you guys were talking about the Condemned. I remember the developer of that, basically, what the developer said killed that, right? The developer said multiplayer killed it.
I don't think... Did it have multiplayer?
Yes, Condemned 2 had multiplayer. And that was one of the reasons that they basically said there would never be a 3, is because the game sold way less than they expected it to, and they attributed it to... They were told the direction they needed to go was that everything had to have multiplayer, so they needed to add multiplayer, and they wasted staff on the multiplayer that was not very well received.
Yeah, a game like that, a game like Condemned doesn't need multiplayer. That's the thing I hate about games, some of the games nowadays, is where they try to tack on the multiplayer. Some games don't need it, right? Some games are fine with a single-player experience, and they don't need a multiplayer. Think of Evil Within, the Evil Within 2. I don't think either one of them have a multiplayer aspect to them.
But like Tomb Raider, the Tomb Raider reboot, when it came out, it had a multiplayer aspect to it. So did Uncharted. Uncharted was fine. The Tomb Raider 1 could have been fine, but they didn't take it far enough. But those
not
are the games
needs multiplayer.
No, it don't. I remember Microsoft was really pushy about that because they were the definitive multiplayer system, especially when the 360 released. So I understand it to a point, but they needed and they're doing it now. That was a whole different showrunner there, but they don't need to do that. We've said it 1,000 times. All of us have. Let the game developers do what the game developers do best. I mean, that's as simple as it can get. Forcing them to put crap like that in is not right.
Right.
Right. When you think of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remakes, they don't have multiplayer, right? And they're fantastic games. You think of Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6, and they had that multiplayer Mercenaries mode. The Mercenaries was fine, but did it need it? No, it didn't.
I think 5 was a great game to play with your friend. Yeah. It wasn't Resident Evil. But it didn't need the mercenary mode. No, right? That mercenary mode, the multiplayer mode that they try to tack on to Resident Evil, didn't need to be there. Resident Evil is a game. It's the same way with Silent Hill. Like if they remade the Silent Hill or made a new Silent Hill game, I hope they don't add multiplayer. It doesn't need it. It's the type of game that doesn't need that aspect. And there's a lot of horror games that are good on their own. They don't need a multiplayer. No, I agree. So, essentially, but if they're going to do in a Resident Evil type scenario. So Resident Evil 2, you have two playthroughs. You have Chris, and then I'm sorry, you have oh God, Resident Evil 2.
Leon.
You have
Claire.
Leon and Claire. Now you do two playthroughs. Now I could see a cooperative playthrough with that, where you're each going through at the same time. But I say, they tweak it to where you can't use party chat. You can only run into each other periodically. I think something like that would be cool. But it's something you don't need for a game like that either. But something like I described wouldn't take away from what that type of game is.
So one of the games that you guys didn't really talk about on the horror genre was Outlast. Did you guys play that one or the second one?
Oh, I didn't really care for it.
Because they're like Outlast and Outlast 2 are like some of the more highly rated horror games out there. Like Steam gave it a 10 out of 10. And Outlast 2 got a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, they got really good reviews, but I did not care for it. I don't like a game that is nothing but, except for Alien Isolation, I give that credit. That is nothing but survive. No defenses, it doesn't work for me. I want to be able to defend myself.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I didn't play Outlast. I have Outlast 1, and I think I have 2 as well. And I didn't play through those either. And that's mainly for the same fact. I don't like, not that I wouldn't play it, but I don't like horror games where you have no defensive skills. You're just going through. It's like going through a haunted house, right? You can't interact with you can't interact with the people. Right, you just go through there and that's it. And those games are kind of like that. You just go through, right? You're not interacting with the people. You're not being able to attack or fight back. And that's one of the things I like about Silent Hill is, Silent Hill, there's occasions where you might have a gun, but the thing that you're fighting back with on most of the time is like a 2x4, right, or lead pipe or something like that. Something that normal people would pick up and grab in a situation in that sense where they don't have a pistol on them, right? Where they would just grab whatever's around them and fight back. And that's what I love about Silent Hill in those aspects is the fighting is not, it's not the centralized portion of the game. It's just an aspect of it. Whereas Outlast is, you're not fighting back in any sort of sense. You're just going through the maze.
Outlast seems like, it's like playing the Friday the 13th game, the movie, the game, where your job is to survive and get out the other side. You want to be one of the surviving campers.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And more like real life, if that would happen.
I'm sure the game's scary, but to me, that just doesn't sound fun. Like I said, it's just like going through a haunted house. You can't fight back against the people trying to scare you. You're just kind of going through and getting scared and going, oh, okay, and just moving on to the next thing, and waiting for the pop-ups and stuff like that, that's one game that I'm sure is scary, but for me personally, has never piqued my interest as far as wanting to play it.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of scary games out there that we probably need to play, especially Patrick. I would like to see some old ones come back, but I definitely want to see the genre continue. You don't get them like you used to. You really don't.
Well, if they're going to make more scary games, let's just make sure that they're 4-player co-op so that I can put 2 of you in front and 1 in the back, and I'll be in the middle. I'll do just fine.
I think I definitely want to finish Resident Evil 7 now that we talked about it. I need to finish Resident Evil 3 as well.
I want to play them, but like I said, it scared me a little too much. It gave me too much anxiety. Maybe I just need to play it on like a bright sunny day with the windows open, the lights on, just so I can play it, so that basement doesn't seem so scary.
Resident Evil 2 and 3 are not scary. I haven't beaten 3 yet, just because I haven't finished it yet. But they're not.
Started.
I don't think it's scary. I played the Resident Evil 2 remake, and I didn't think it was scary. But 7 is kind of creepy.
7's creepy, but it's not scary. Like there were sections in 7 where I thought I was going to pop, someone's going to pop out or something's going to happen, and none of that ever happened, right? I mean, I beat 7. 7 was a great game, and once I finished it, I was like, wow, that game wasn't scary at all. There wasn't really anything that really scared me in it. Not like the original, right? When we talked about it originally at the beginning of this, I think Russ talked about the dogs jumping through the windows and the crows popping through the windows and stuff like that. And that was scary back then, because it was unexpected. You go down the hallway because, it wasn't the hallway that the dogs first appeared in 1. You wouldn't go down the hallway the first time the dog crashed through the window. You've gone down this hallway. It was like the 3rd or 4th time that you would go down this hallway because it was a hallway that would connect to another area of the game, of the map, that you had to go through. And by the 3rd or 4th time that you would go through this hallway thinking, nothing happens, then a dog would crash through the window, which was unexpected, right? And so that would freak you out and go, oh crap, there's a dog, you wouldn't expect it. Yeah. So, Resident Evil 7 doesn't have those moments. It doesn't have those moments. So it's more psychological horror, right? You think something is going to happen, but really nothing.
You spend your entire really time running away from inbreds.
Right. I mean, nothing really happens. It's a great game. It's a great story. It's fun. I would recommend playing it for anybody who likes Resident Evil. It's probably, it's definitely up there as one of the best Resident Evil games. But as far as scary, once you complete it, you're like, that wasn't really that scary.
So what you're saying is that's probably one that I could play then. But I just got to get over my fear of going in the basement.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, once you get in the basement, you'll go through it and you'll go, oh, that wasn't bad at all. Because the enemies don't pop out at you, right? It's like they're around the corner. You go turn a corner and there's one there, and you're like, oh, here's one. And you kill him, and you go on, and it's like, oh, this is going to be nope, there he is over there. It's like one of those things. It's like there's never a portion where it just jumps out at you. You think it's going to happen, right? You have that psychological feeling that, oh, something's going to come out and get me, but it never happens in 7.
Well, my biggest problem with Resident Evil is I don't like it going to first person. Don't like it at all. I like the third person view.
The best decision they've ever made.
You shut your dirty mouth.
I love the third person aspect, but the first person just makes it more. It's just better. I think that was the best decision they made, and I hope every Resident Evil from this point, from 7 on, continues that first person perspective.
Well, I think we've got about everything we can out of Resident Evil and all the horror genre. Anybody got anything you want to add?
I got nothing to add, except for I'm hanging onto somebody's shirt tails as we're going through the haunted house.
What about you, Russ?
No, nothing from me. I mean, I appreciate listening to you guys because I don't play as many of these games either. I've got a little experience with 1 or 2 of them, but it's enjoyable to hear you guys talk about it because, especially for Nick and Shane, they have such admiration for that kind of genre, and of course, it's fun to poke the bear every once in a while as well. But overall, it's some of these games I've actually wrote down. I'm like, I don't think I've ever played that, so I might look for a PC version of it or something like that to get on sale or something. But definitely going to continue to try what you guys recommend on those things, and appreciate you guys sharing.
Well, I definitely recommend go old school. Find you some old PlayStation, Nintendo Dreamcast Classics. Start there, and then work your way up to the big boy level.
Yeah.
What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I think we've talked about them all. One game that I will reiterate that every person who wants to be scared should play is Fear, the original Fear. It's a first-person shooter. It's got slow-mo mechanics, so you slow down time and shoot people. It's great gunplay. So, I mean, it's got, it's fantastic gunplay, fantastic guns, a fantastic first-person shooter. But it has psychological horror in it, and it is probably the best demonstration of a game that will freak you out. So,
I enjoyed it, but
I
remember
love
it being
Fear.
that scary.
All right.
Fear
Check
is
that one off.
Fear is one of my favorites. And whenever I post, we have a poll going on, and probably the time this cast is out, the poll will be over with. But whenever I post a poll or post anything as far as people's favorite horror or scary game, Fear is always on my list. I think Fear is a great game, first off, and a great horror game, secondly. It's one that I don't think enough people have played, and I think it's something that everyone should experience because I think it's a great game and should really definitely come back. They made a Fear 3 on the 360, which was more action. They did the same thing all the other ones did. They went more action and less psychological, less horror. So I would love to see Fear come back as its original roots, as being a scary game and less of an action just shooter like Fear 3 turned out to be.
All right. Take those recommendations. All right. Well, I think that's it for everybody here. Appreciate listening. Talk to you later.